So we are here in Middle Tennessee again with my friend Kenton Adams. And Kenton is going to show us his shop. This is actually the first time I've been over to his shop. He's been to mine a few times. And I'm really excited to finally get to see your small but very efficient setup. So show us your shop.
Alrighty, well first of all, it's a joy to have you here.
Well,
I know
thanks
we've
for
been
having
working
me.
on it for a little while.
Yeah,
Getting you here.
long time coming.
Yeah, so this is basically the forging area. It's a simple setup, but it works well for what I designed it to do. Let's start here with the forge, since that's probably kind of the most important thing. So, this forge I built at the end of 2016. I'd been using a little rivet forge, little tiny, like half a tire rim with a...
I hate them.
yeah, one of those. I'd been using one of those for several years. And
That's what I started with too, so.
yeah, it got me started, but I just wanted to do a lot more, and I particularly wanted to do more forge welding. I had just finished a couple classes, one by a blacksmith, Gerald Boggs, over in Virginia, or West Virginia, somewhere over there, and another blacksmith, Matthias Penn, up in Missouri.
Okay.
And I've been learning some forge welding because I was really having some trouble with it, trying to learn it in that little rivet forge.
Yeah.
So I built this forge, and I built it way bigger than I needed originally because my end vision was I wanted to have a leg vise on it.
Yeah.
I've only had this leg vise now since about the beginning of this year, so January 2021 is when I got it, and thanks so much to you for your advice on what vise to get, and I absolutely love it.
And that now you're wondering how you ever got along without
Right.
it.
In fact, I used to use the power tools for all kinds of like grinding and that kind of thing, but now I find myself doing so much by hand with files because I can hold it so securely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to interrupt and say, like, you said this was like bigger than you needed to start, to start with because you're going to put a vise on it. This is not big to me. Like, I'm a huge believer, and like, I want everybody to look at this right here.
It's about 32 inches by 4 feet.
Look at how much, how much space is taken up with the fuel.
Just pulling apart the fire, yeah.
And I'm a huge believer in big forges. Big tables for coal forges, and this is about perfect.
Okay.
I think 3 feet by 4 feet, or even 4 feet square, is like right on the money. So
I
I
think
very
this
much
one's 32
approve.
inch by 4
It's
feet.
way heavier than it needs to be, but
The top is a 1/4 inch thick steel plate.
I'm gonna mess with him.
The top is a 1/4 inch thick steel plate, so the whole thing weighs around, I think, 350 pounds.
And it won't be rusting out tomorrow. So.
No, and the weight makes it so nice having the vise because it's hard to shake it when you're doing harder work on that.
It's lovely.
The fire pot here is made out of 1 inch thick steel plate, and it is 5 inches deep, which is a little bit deeper than most forges that I see made today. I don't know how it was done years and years ago. You have so much more knowledge than I do on how it was done in years gone by. But I wanted it that deep.
Side blast for one thing.
Right. This one's
and
not.
basically, what most historians think is that side blast forges, pre-Civil War, pretty much all forges were side blast, and they didn't have fire pots. They didn't even have a depression, and you would basically build your fire pot with mounds of fuel.
Okay.
So
that
even
makes
more
sense.
need for a large table.
Right.
And sometimes I think they might have what was called a fender or an iron ring, sheet iron ring that you could set around it that would deepen the fire without having to have so much fuel.
But that wasn't like right in the fire like this is, right? Okay, that was more to hold
It was
your fuel.
around it.
Okay, cool.
Around the fuel. So anyway, yeah.
So
the deep fire pot.
I designed this fire pot because I wanted to do Damascus pattern welded steel. And it's done very, very well for that. I mean, this fire pot is 7 inches by 9 inches, 5 inches deep. And it gets really, really hot. This is my second fire pot that I've had in here. I mentioned this is 1 inch thick steel plate. My previous one, my first one I made out of 5/8 inch plate. But the problem with that is this ran so hot that 5/8 inch plate would get above scaling temperature. Like you'd look underneath and it'd be orange and scaling off, which means every welding fire, you're slowly losing your fire pot.
Yeah, right.
And it finally just scaled through till it was about 3/16 inch up here at the top.
Wow.
And so I pitched that one and remade this one end of 2020, last year. And I've run fires super, super hot in here, and I've never quite seen it where you could see heat on it. It turns dark, it's hot, but you can't quite see heat on it. So I'm excited about that and happy about that because I don't think this thing's gonna be flaking off like the other one did.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And the blower, this is a Champion blower.
I think I have the same exact blower.
Okay. And it has
mine
served
is also
me very well.
smooth. I think yours might even be quieter than mine. And that's not a huge blower. It's not a Champion 400 or anything like that, but it's more than adequate for your very large and deep fires.
Long term, I would like to get a bigger blower because you have to crank on this pretty hard when you're welding like a 2-inch by 2-inch by 3 or 4-inch billet in here, which you can weld. This is somewhat of that's what I was saying. Sorry, I got off on a rabbit trail. I was saying this fire pot is 9 inches by 7 inches, and I have melted a 2 1/4-inch truck axle, melted it in a fire pot that small.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you design your things well, I found, you can do quite a bit in them, and that was with this blower. Long term, I would like to put this blower on this forge. This is just a little forge. I consider this one my portable forge. And I have this blower that I may attach to it in the meantime, but I would love to put this blower on this little one. I use this for like demonstrations, that kind of thing, when I don't want to haul a 350-pound forge. Yeah. I'll put this blower on there, and then I'll likely get a bigger blower for this. But, you know, that's down the road. Right now I'm working with what I have, and it is working. So I'm grateful.
That is a pretty little anvil, I gotta say. It's a hay button.
It is. It's a 90-pound hay button.
Totally unmistakable as a hay button. Classic hay button.
Right. Yep. This anvil, it's my second anvil. The first anvil I had is right down over here. This is an 80-pound. I was told it was a Badger. There's no markings on it except a number 8 on one of the feet. The blacksmith Matthias Penn that I mentioned up in Missouri, he helped me rebuild the face of it because it was in quite poor condition, and he did a great job at it. I shouldn't say he helped me rebuild the face. He let me watch as he rebuilt the face, and it's worked very well. It's a cast anvil, and so it doesn't ring like this one does. So I use that one when I'm doing demonstrations, that kind of thing. But this is my main anvil. I love it. It is, like I said, a 90-pound hay button, and I've had it now for a couple years. It's my main anvil, and you'll notice the stand. It's not the greatest stand, is it? I built this
but it
stand
gets the job done.
When I was 14. I believe I was 14 when I built this. It's 2x4s just crossed, layer going this way, then a layer going this way, back and forth. And the reason I built this is, first of all, because I had free 2x4s from the neighbor that was building a house, scrap 2x4s. And secondly, I wanted to be able to add on to it as I got taller, because I was down about this tall when I was 14. I knew as I got taller, I'd need to add on. So these layers all down here have been added on. Secondly, the reason I've kept this stand as opposed to building a main stand, even though now I probably won't get much taller, is because of demonstrations. Like back in January, I hauled this entire setup, the big forge, everything, over to Texas to demonstrate and teach a blacksmithing/tool making class at an agriculture conference. And I can take the anvil off, pull the cinder blocks out the bottom, and the whole stand collapses pretty small. This entire setup we fit in the back of an F-150. Now, it did have a plywood extension that clipped into the, what do you call it, the hitch, that square hole at the bottom, which extended our bed by about 3 feet. But I want this kind of to be able to be taken down.
Portable, right.
And so I don't know what I'll do as far as building another stand, but I will someday. Well, should we move over into here?
Let's see the rest of it.
So you'll see quite a bit of power equipment, power tools in here. And right now, this is all run off of generator. The smaller machines, like the little lathe here, and the belt sander, spindle sander, bandsaw, and grinders, those all run off of a 3,000-watt Honda generator. When I need to run the larger equipment, like the 2 welders, the milling machine, and our large air compressor over there, I run it off of this generator. And the reason it's run off of a generator is we are a little over 1.5 miles from the nearest electricity. And we live completely off-grid out here on our homestead, and we will have solar at some point, and a solar system big enough to be able to run the small machines. But right now, I just run it off of generator, and it works, yeah. Cool. So 2 welders, spindle sander. This machine, I guess you could call it a machine, this little sander, is such a time saver when it comes to sanding curves on knife handles and that kind of thing. Different sizes. I have like 1.5 inch up to 3-inch spindles for it. Excellent machine. Right over here is what you'll see is a mechanical power hammer frame. I started building that some years ago. It's a tire hammer patterned very much after the ones Clay Spencer has done. He actually, kind gentleman, he let me go down to his place and look over his power hammers. That I haven't done work on now for a couple of years. It's kind of been sitting here. I just haven't had the time, and I've kind of shifted focus. and so I haven't had as much of the need to do that. I do still plan on either making or buying a power hammer at some point, but the reason I've been slow on that one is I think, even if I did finish it, would it suit my need at this point?
Yeah.
Because I need something that will hammer like 2
and
inch.
your design preferences have probably changed in the last few years as well.
Yeah. So that's sitting there right now. The anvil for it, 260 pounds, is the vertical part of a forklift fork. So it's about 4 inches by 7.5 over there. I use that as a striking anvil when I have a striker here. It perfectly slides in the holes of the large cinder blocks there. So I stack the two on top of each other with that thing in the middle, and it holds it beautifully.
Nice.
So, yeah, moving right over here, this is a milling machine. This has been one of the absolute biggest blessings to the shop. A friend of mine gifted me with this machine. He's moved on to huge CNC machines. Yes. And so I use this for a lot of milling, also drilling, really, really precise drilling. And we'll probably take a look at these later, but I'm going to grab this letter opener just as an example right here. This is a little letter opener I did, and it's got super tight fits as far as the pins and everything, up to the riveted bolsters, and that would have been completely impossible without that mill. Just your normal type of drill press would not drill holes so precise that this would clip in there that tight without any kind of gap filler or anything like that. So, yes, that's the mill over here. Air compressor, it's pretty basic. The shelving over here is mainly just what holds materials. You can see up here I have wood, different types of woods, exotic woods like mahogany and purple heart and caoba and a couple burls. And up here I have more materials, wrought iron pieces. Like this right here is an old wagon tire that I found in a creek bed. And as an example of what I use wrought iron for, this Bowie knife right here. Sorry, I'm walking around a whole bunch. This has an etched wrought iron blade guard. I don't know if the lighting is that good to see it, but I enjoy using wrought iron more decoratively, just for pieces here, as opposed to, I know you forge a lot of things completely out of it. Most of the forgings that I do is out A36 mild steel. Yeah. And I use the wrought iron.
Plenty of mild steel too. I love how, I mean, I'm not very judgmental of shops that aren't as organized as yours. Mine isn't even, but I do love how organized you're keeping things. I mean, I guess you have to in a space this small. Like,
yeah,
the smaller the space, the harder it is to be organized, but it's almost more necessary.
And the more machines you get too. Yeah. Every time I get a new machine, it's like, okay, time to rearrange everything.
And I'm going to guess that you probably have plans for a bigger shop in the not too distant future.
Yes, yes, for sure.
And that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, you can't really see it from here, but out there we have a greenhouse, and on the other side of that, next to where you parked out there, we're going to be building a shop. I don't know how big yet, but it's going to be...
It'll never be big enough.
It'll never be big enough, but our plan is to build it big enough that the shop only takes up a third of it, and then we can do all kinds of other stuff
in it. Awesome.
2/3 with 2 lofts in each end. So the center third will be open all the way to the ceiling, and the 2/3 on each side will have lofts.
Awesome.
But yeah, so
right now it's primarily bladesmithing.
Yes.
But you do. I've seen you doing some pretty cool little custom blacksmithing projects here and there.
Yeah. So. Primarily bladesmithing
/ machining / welding.
Yeah. Damascus steel too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Speaking of Damascus, right here on top of the spindle sander are a few chisels. They're Damascus chisels. They're black right now because they've been painted with high temperature spray paint for heat treating. I do most of the sanding before heat treating while the steel is soft.
And the paint basically keeps it from scaling during heat treatment.
And now might be a good time to go over how I do the heat treating. I do it in the coal forge, but I put a tube. I have a thick tube that I have flattened, so it's like a tall oval, and I put that in there, and then I heat treat inside the tube. So there are no physical
There's no
coals.
air blast or anything like that.
Right, that helps cut down on the oxygen. Sometimes I'll throw little slivers of wood in beside it just because I'll watch the flame. If it just kind of smolders there, there's not enough oxygen to make the flame. But if it bursts into flame, it helps. So that's another
that's cool
backyard method of trying to determine how much oxygen. But yes, then as another safety measure, I'm going to back up. The first safety measure is the deep fire pot. That gives the oxygen a lot more chance to burn as it comes up. Then you're inside a tube that shields it from the fire blast. Then inside the tube, the thing is covered in high temperature spray paint. And I love this method because I can sand it to like a 600 grit finish all over, basically what you'd sand it to for etching. Sometimes I go to 800. And you can heat treat it, and then when you're done, just sand it right off with, again, 600 grit sandpaper, and you just have a perfect finish.
Yeah,
underneath.
the finish is all there. No scaling, no whatever they call the marbled look that you often get in the quench.
Because it takes
cool.
so much time to sand that out after heat treating. And
that's cool. Well, show us some of your finished work.
Okay. Yeah.
Got some beautiful knives here.
Right over here, I already picked up this little letter opener. This is a twist pattern letter opener, and it's got riveted brass bolsters here at the front. And when I say riveted, I countersunk the holes, put a pin in there, and riveted it, and then sanded it smooth, so it looks like one piece, but there actually is a rivet through the center. It's Guatemalan rosewood that I brought back from Guatemala. I was down there for a month a while ago to help drill wells in remote villages. We have some friends who do that, and there was a kind local gentleman that had a wood shop, and I got all this wood out of the scrap pile.
Yeah.
This is a Damascus knife that I did a little while ago. Guatemalan Ormigo wood handle with stainless steel blade guard and pommel on the back. And this is a through tang, so it's riveted onto the back right here. And this right here is, I picked up this one already too. This is a Bowie knife forged from a circular saw blade. That's what this material is. And I left the forged finish on it just because I wanted to do something different. That's not what I typically do. And it's got the etched wrought iron blade guard with rosewood. This also has a rosewood handle and brass pins. And right over here we have one more. This is one that I finished just a little while ago. It's 8670 steel. It's a chopper with a full flat grind, and the handle is Purple Heart up here, and this is more of the Guatemalan rosewood. I like the rosewood. It's got such a tight grain, finishes beautifully, and I did a 90-degree transition there just for the fun of it.
Beautiful fit and finish, I have to say.
It's pretty easy on that milling machine over there. That's what I used. And didn't have to do a second attempt. Just cut the 90-degree angle and it goes right on.
I need to find a source for rosewood for making file handles. I really want to make some rosewood file handles. Well, it's a nice, tight little shop. Really appreciate the tour, and I'm glad to finally get out here. So.
There's the block of rosewood. If you care to see what it looks like, this is just the chunk that I got out of the scrap pile down in Guatemala.
Beautiful.
Yep. Well, it's definitely been a joy having you guys come and be able to see it.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.